What has your experience with posing been like?
It's been interesting to say the least. When I first started bodybuilding, my posing was atrocious. And it's like you're trying to overthink it. And the simpler that you can make it, and when you work with a coach, if they can simplify it for you, I think that's where it makes it so much easier. I would also say that just like comparing to like a pro football player, they watch tapes of different teams play. They watch these different plays so that they can figure out, okay, is this what I want to do or can I tweak it for me? How do I make this work for me? That I think is the value of posing is if you can start studying these people that you really like their posing and you figure out, okay, I really like that transition to the back. Now I'm going to try it. I'm going to record myself. What does it look like? Maybe I have a little bit more roundness in my upper glute. How can I make that pop differently than what she had? Or, I don't like this at all. What can I do that is maybe totally off the whim, but it fits within the category? That's, I think, the beauty of this sport because essentially bodybuilding is appreciating the art of the body. So when you're on stage, your job is to make your body look like a work of art. You need to look confident. If you're a male, you want to look masculine, but you also want to have that beauty appeal. If you're a female, you want to look feminine, but you have that feminine strength and that beauty within you. That's why we get our hair and makeup done and we have jewelry on. It's at the end of the day, it's a beauty contest with muscles. So when you practice your posing, and I practice posing every single day, even, okay, off season, I don't practice every day, just to be fair, but I do practice in the off season because I know it's going to better me in the long run. And since I help people with posing, I want to learn different techniques and I want to study different things that might help somebody else. And I would say over the past year to year and a half has been the biggest learning curve for me from a posing standpoint. I worked, I think, with over 10 different posing coaches myself to just learn. And from there, that's helped me transfer some of that to the clients that I work with. I work mostly with younger, newer athletes to help them with their posing and their presentation. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the quarter turns, but how do you walk? How do you flip your hair? What's your smile like? All of those things matter. So it's super fun for me to help people with posing. And to your point, is literally the icing on the cake. And if you go to a restaurant and they tell you they're going to bring out this duck confit, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be so good. And they bring it out and it's like all mashed up, and you're like, that doesn't look like duck confit. You're like, okay, do I want this? That's exactly how it is if you have a physique, you cut down, you condition down, you're ready to step on stage, but you don't know how to present your body to the judges the best way you can. It's not going to look good to them. They aren't going to want to pick you as their first choice off the menu.
I've always said you could be the most in shape person on the planet, and if you don't know how to pose, good luck to you. I mean, it's not going to happen. But being that you work with a lot of people who are just getting started in posing, what would you say is probably the biggest detriment that they have, or what's the biggest struggle for them when it comes to starting out posing?
I think most of my younger athletes who are just starting posing, the hardest thing for them is thinking that they have to flex or tighten up the muscles so hard when they're in the pose. A lot of the poses are extremely simple and fluid. And yeah, you're going to open your muscles up a certain way, but it's not like when you're at the gym and you're like chasing a pump. You're only wanting to flex and pose, if you will, about 40%. And the longer you're on stage, the more and more you're going to increase that, and your muscles are going to harden through that process.
Yeah. I've seen so many times where I was like, is that person about to pass out because they're flexing so hard? And I'm just like, okay, they're not. And just like I always say, with the one biggest thing with posing too is like the human body is not meant to be in that flex of a state for that long of a period of time. So yeah, you kind of do have to spread out. But since you are the first wellness athlete that we've had on, what is the difference in posing between a wellness athlete and a figure athlete? Is there any at all?
There's very much so. I would compare wellness more towards the bikini division, and I'll tell you a little bit why. So when they first announced wellness, a lot of people were just on the impression it was about bigger legs. Well, as we started to see more and more, and I started to study the top pros in Europe and Brazil to see what their physiques looked like. So I watched several judges online, different competitions like the Arnold Brazil, to see what they were actually doing. And as you start to evaluate these physiques, these women are very conditioned and their lower bodies are very muscular. And as you start to see this more and more in the US, it's going to be interesting as the division unfolds a little bit to see, you know, what the standard is going to be here. But when they're in the poses, you're going to start off with a front pose that's very similar to a bikini front pose, but showing off the quads. So in bikini, they don't really want bigger quads, but in wellness, you want to have balanced quads to glute and hamstrings, not overpowering quads. I think that's going to be a misnomer that women are thinking they need big quads. Well, they have to be balanced. So then you rotate into the first side pose. This is where it's a little bit similar to figure is you need to show your lat. They want to see lat taper and they want to see some taper from your shoulder down to your glute. It needs to have curvature there, and that's where having a smaller waist can really be an advantage or making your posing look good where you have a smaller waist ratio. And then in the back pose, of course, is similar to the bikini, just showing your glute ham tie-ins, and you want to see quad sweep from the back as well as shapely calves. Then you do another side pose and you're pretty much done. So I think the conditioning of wellness, I'm leaning more towards figure in that. And the few shows that we've seen in the US so far because of COVID, most of the women who are winning have similar to figure conditioning level. They were saying bikini in the beginning, but we'll see. As more competitors come out, the judges might pick the softer look. We don't really know. I just think a lot of women are going to try and come into a show softer, but I think it's going to be a benefit to come into a show drier and more conditioned.